14th degree or Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason. In this degree the candidate learns that the end of said work is his admittance into the sacred vault, and that far onward and above the steps he has already taken, Freemasonry is to develop itself on a still larger scale. The sacred vault is the last place of rest in the mystic field of the first efforts of Freemasonry and prophesies its future triumphs. The candidate looks for the last time at the mystic furniture of the Solomonian school, such as the altar of sacrifices, typifying material worship, the altar of perfumes, typifying intellectual religion, the brazen sea, typifying impenetrable infinity, the loaves of showbread, typifying the mystic communion of mankind, the golden tray and trowel, typifying the fusion of all the races of men and the secret of their alliance, despite the many differences of customs and laws which divide the sons of the Almighty Father. On one side and in the past appears the formidable God of bygone generations. His names are inscribed on the breastplate of the high priests of the Jews. On the other side and far in the future, the eternal, good, simple, benevolent, merciful, equitable and ever-consoling Father of mankind, whose titles are written with the blood of that sublime teacher, who first of all proclaimed the existence of a God of love, and love only. What an encouragement for a Freemason to pursue his course and reach the last term of his painful and glorious career. The ceremonies in this degree are sublimely grand and imposing and are calculated to give us exalted views of the grandeur, power and majesty of God. The lecture and history of this degree are rich to profusion with valuable and interesting matter relating to the symbolism and instruction contained in all the preceding degrees of symbolic and ineffable masonry. Decorations. The lodge represents a subterranean vault painted red or hung with red hangings. In the west is a part of Enoch's pillar, consisting of pieces found among the ancient ruins. In the east is the Pillar of Beauty, the burning bush and a transparent delta, with the Hebrew letters Jod, He, Vu, He, inscribed therein. The lodge is illuminated when at work by 24 lights distributed as follows: 9 in the east, 3 in the north, 7 in the west, before the senior warden and 5 before the junior warden in the south. Furniture consists of the Holy Bible, square and compass and triangle, the altar of incense, the altar of sacrifice, table of showbread, brazen laver, Ark of the Covenant, tables of the law, golden candlestick, 2 brazen columns, golden urn of oil, golden vase filled with water, golden goblet filled with wine, gold bing and trowel, a silver hod of ointment and the cube stone. Before each of the officers is a white triangular table. The assembly is styled a Grand Lodge of Perfection, and consists of but 27 members. If more are made they must become honorary members. Titles. There are 10 officers in the Grand Lodge of Perfection. First, thrice puissant Grand Master, represents King Solomon, stationed in the east. He is the first officer in the lodge and presides over the work and confers all the degrees of the ineffable series. His official jewel a crowned compass with a blazing sun in the center. Second, Deputy Grand Master represents Hiram King of Tyre, seated on the right of Solomon in the east. Jewel a crowned compass with a moon in the center. Third, Senior Grand Warden, represents Adoniram the son of Abda stationed in the west. Jewel a golden trowel. Fourth, Junior Grand Warden represents Moabon, stationed in the south. Jewel a sword. Fifth, the Grand Keeper of the Seals, represents Galad, stationed on the left of the thrice puissant. Jewel an ivory key. Sixth, the Grand Treasurer represents Sublime, stationed in the north before the table of showbread. Jewel is a golden key. Seventh, the Grand Secretary represents Joabut, stationed in the south before the table of perfumes. Jewel a gold pen. Eighth, the Grand Orator represents Abdomen, stationed in the south near the altar of sacrifices between the junior warden and secretary. Jewel a scroll. Ninth, the Grand Master of Ceremonies represents Stokin, stationed in the north between the treasurer and captain of the guard. Jewel a staff. He prepares and conducts the candidate. 10th, the Grand Captain of the Guards represents Zerbal, stationed in the north between the Master of Ceremonies and Senior Warden. Besides these the thrice puissant appoints a hospitable brother, stationed in the north between the Master of Ceremonies and Treasurer. Jewel a winged rod. He takes charge of the charity fund and visits sick brethren. Also a Grand Tiller stationed at the door of the entrance. Jewel is a flaming sword. Election takes place every year, on the third day of the month Adar. Besides this day, lodgers are required to observe the St. John's Day and to celebrate on the 5th day of October, annually, the building of the first temple, also the 5th day of the month Ab, in commemoration of the dedication of that temple. Clothing, or the officers are dressed as in the preceding degree, except they wear the apron, order and jewel of this degree. The officers wearing their official jewels. The collar worn by the officers is a broad white watered ribbon, with a white and red rosette at the bottom from which is suspended the official jewel. All wear swords. The brethren wear black, loose gowns with hoods behind at back of neck, white gloves and purple and red turbans. Apron, white, lined and bordered with crimson, a barrow blue ribbon is set across the edge. In the center of the apron is painted or embroidered a square flat stone, within which is engraved an iron ring fastened thereto. Girdle, of a perfect mason, is made of various colored silk, arranged in the following combination: 3, 5, 7, 9. Order, a crimson collar, with white and red rosette at the bottom, from which is suspended the jewel. Jewel, a gold compass crowned and extended to 90 degrees. Between the arms of the compass is a medal, on one side of which is engraved the sun, on the other a blazing star with the delta in the center. On the quadrant are engraved the figures 3, 5, 7, 9. Each knight wears a wedding ring, in the interior of which are engraved on one side the name of the knight and the date of his reception, and on the other these words: "Virtue unites what death cannot separate." On the table of perfumes when an initiation, must be the hardened trowel, with oil to anoint and a pan with burning coals for incense, and on the table of showbread must be the cup with wine for libation, also a gold ring to present to the candidate, besides all the jewels necessary for the candidate. Opening ceremonies. Thrice puissant, Brother Senior Grand Warden, are we dialed in this sacred vault? Senior Grand Warden, thrice puissant Grand Master, we are all dialed, and in security from cowans. Thrice puissant, since we are well dialed and in security from cowans, my most dear brethren, let us pray to the great architect of the universe that he may enlighten and inspire us. Let us pray with one knee on the ground. All form a circle round the altar and kneel on the left knee. Opening prayer. Almighty and sovereign architect of heaven and earth, who, by thy divine power, dost ultimately search the most secret recesses of thought, purify our hearts by the sacred fire of thy love, guide us by thy unerring hand in the path of virtue, and cast out of thy adorable sanctuary all impiety and perverseness. We beseech thee that our thoughts may be engaged in the grand work of our perfection, which when attained will be an ample reward for our labor. Let peace and charity link us together in a pleasing union, and may this lodge exhibit a faint resemblance of that happiness which the elect will enjoy in thy kingdom. Give us a spirit of holy discrimination by which we may be able to refuse the evil and choose the good, and also that we may not be led astray by those who unworthily assume the character of the grand elect. May a sweet perfume ascend from the altar of our hearts and be acceptable to thee, O Jehovah, our Adonai. Finally, be pleased to grant that all our proceedings may tend to our glory, and our advancement in righteousness. Bless and prosper our works, O Lord. Amen. All rise and sing the following ode, at the altar. Ode. Indian philosopher. No solar beam, no lunar ray, illumined the dark, the narrow way that led me to the door. I found myself a knight, and then the sacred vault I entered in. By mystic number 4. 'Twas there, impressed with the holy awe, a gold engraven plate I saw, with dazzling splendor shine. To us the grand elect alone, its secret characters are known, ineffable, divine. The precious treasure long concealed was by 3 worthy knights revealed. Where erst a temple stood, its ancient ruins they explored, and found the grand mysterious word, made known before the flood. Fulfilled then was the promise made, and beauty's pillar soon displayed. The treasure they had found, their ancient seal and cruelty, their dangerous toil and constancy, were with due honor crowned. Ours like those we shall prove, who joined in pure and social love, perfection's work pursue. May the sublime grand architect, by his unerring laws direct, the honored chosen few. May all who friendship's feast partake, the good pursue, the bad forsake, and may each rite and sign a happy lasting influence shed. the quadrant crowned, the oil the bread, the golden ring the wine. Long as I live the ring I'll wear, symbol of alliance dear, to every brother's heart, and bless the sacred tie that binds. In virtue's chain for virtue joins, what death can never part. Thrice puissant, brother senior warden, what conducted you hither? Senior warden, thrice puissant, it is the law of masonry, my obligation and a desire to the perfection of masonry. Thrice puissant, what have you brought here? Senior warden, a heart zealous for friendship and love of virtue. Thrice puissant, what are the proper qualities for acquiring this? Senior warden, the first two conduct us immediately to the third, and when these are properly attained they lead us to happiness and perfection. Thrice puissant, what is the true disposition of an elect and perfect mason? Senior warden, to divest his heart of iniquity, vindictiveness and jealousy. To be always ready to do good and never employ his tongue in calumniating his brother. Thrice puissant, how are you to behave in this place? Senior warden, with profound respect. Thrice puissant, how comes it that rich and poor, prince and subject are here always friends and brothers? Senior warden, because there is something in that delta, pointing to it, repeated on the pedestal and firmament which is greater than you. Thrice puissant, why is the delta the subject of your respect? Senior warden, because it contains the sacred name of the eternal God, known, revered and exalted in heaven and on earth by the name of the great architect of the universe. Thrice puissant, what age are you? Senior warden, 3 times 3, the perfect number 81, when properly repeated by our mysterious calculation. Thrice puissant, how, my brother, can you demonstrate this? Senior warden, I am a perfect sublime elect mason, my travels are finished and it's now time for me to reap the fruit of my labor. Thrice puissant, what did you contract when you were made the grand elect perfect and sublime mason? Senior warden, I contracted an alliance with virtue and the virtuous. Thrice puissant, what mark have you got to shew it? Senior warden, this gold ring, a symbol of purity. Thrice puissant, what's the clock? Senior warden, high 12. Thrice puissant, what do you understand by high 12? Senior warden, because the sun at its zenith darts its rays perpendicularly into this lodge, intimating the time to work efficaciously to the end of our perfection, and to profit by its generosity. Thrice puissant, where will you find materials? Senior warden, in the treasury and virtue of the perfect masons, in regularly composing my actions in my heart by the square and compass of divine wisdom. Thrice puissant, where is the divine's wisdom displayed? Senior warden, in the hearts of the worthy, upright brethren who compose this respectable lodge, of which you are the supporter. Thrice puissant, and now my respectable brethren, I am going to enforce your designs to this effect. Brother Senior Grand Warden, announce that I am going to open this lodge of Grand Elect Perfect and Sublime Masons by the mysterious numbers 3, 5, 7, 9. Senior Warden, brethren, you will please take notice that the thrice puissant Grand Master is going to open this lodge of Grand Elect Perfect and Sublime Masons by the mysterious numbers 3, 5, 7 and 9. Junior Warden, claps 3 slow. All rise. Senior Warden, claps 5 slow. Thrice puissant, claps 7 slow. All are silent for a moment. Thrice puissant, claps 3. To order, my brethren. Or make the signs of obligation. Signs of obligation. Place the right hand on the left side of the abdomen and draw it quickly and horizontally across the body to the right side. Sign of fire. Raise the right hand, open, to the left cheek, the palm outward, at the same time grasping the elbow with the left hand. Thrice puissant strikes 3. All then make the signs of admiration. Signs of admiration. Raise both hands open to heaven, tie head inclined forward, the eyes erected upwards. Afterwards place the first 2 fingers of the right hand on the lips. Thrice puissant, to the glory of the Grand Architect of the Universe, and under the auspices of the Supreme Grand Council of Sovereign Grand Inspectors General of the 33rd degree, in the valley of name of your valley, and by virtue of the authority on me conferred by this sublime Grand Lodge of Perfection, I declare its works thereof now opened. Senior Warden, brethren, this sublime Grand Lodge of Perfection is opened. Thrice puissant, together brethren, or make the first sign. Thrice puissant, brethren, we will now cover and be seated. Initiation. The candidate must be prepared in the ante-room as a knight of the Royal Arch by the Grand Master of Ceremonies. He then conducts him to the entrance of the narrow passage and gives him the first password, and orders him to knock 3, 5, 7, and give the password shibboleth 3 times with an aspiration. N, B. In the ceremonies of initiation, the narrow passage can be represented by passing through 3 ante-rooms and giving the alarm at each door or in any manner as best suits the situation of the room. First guard, who comes there? Master of Ceremonies, a sublime knight of the Royal Arch who desires perfection in being introduced into the sacred vault. First guard, how does he expect to gain admission? Master of Ceremonies, by the pass. First guard, give me the pass. Candidate, shibboleth, shibboleth, shibboleth. First guard, pass. They then proceed to the second door and knock 3, 5, 7. Second guard, who comes there? Master of Ceremonies, a sublime knight of the Royal Arch who, having passed the first guard, desires perfection in being introduced into the sacred vault. Second guard, how does he expect to gain admission? Master of Ceremonies, by the pass. Second guard, give me the pass. Candidate, prompted by Master of Ceremonies, Elhanan. Second guard, pass. They then proceed to the door of the lodge and knock 3, 5, 7 and 9. Junior Grand Warden, knocks 3, 5, 7 and 9. Senior Grand Warden, knocks 3, 5, 7 and 9. Thrice puissant Grand Master, knocks 3, 5, 7 and 9. Brother Junior Grand Warden, go and see who knocks at our door as a Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason. Junior Grand Warden goes to the door and knocks 3, 5, 7, 9, opens the door and says, who knocks at our door as a Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason? Who is there? Master of Ceremonies, a sublime knight of the Royal Arch, who desires perfection in being introduced into the sacred vault. Thrice puissant Grand Master, let him be introduced in a proper manner. The door is then opened by the captain of the guard who says, let him be admitted. He enters and is conducted round the lodge to the altar, they at the same time pointing their naked swords at his breast. As he enters, the thrice puissant says, thrice puissant, the Lord is in his holy temple. His eyes behold, his eyelids try the children of men. Hiram King of Tyre, Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Thrice puissant, he that walketh upright and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. Senior Grand Warden, he that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not his oath, who sweareth not by the name of God profanely. Master of Ceremonies, what man is he that desireth life and loveth many days that he may see good? Thrice puissant, keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile. Depart from evil and do good, seek peace and ensue it. Senior Grand Warden, thus saith the Lord of hosts, amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause yon to dwell in this place forever. Hiram King of Tyre, who can say I have made my heart clean, I am pure from sin, for there is not a just man on the earth who doeth good and sinneth not, no, not one. Thrice puissant, but whoso confesseth his sins and forsaketh them, he shall have mercy, saith the Lord of hosts. Senior Grand Warden, thus saith the Lord, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house ye have builded unto me? For all these things hath my hands made. But to this man will I look, even to him that is poor and of a contrite spirit and that trembleth at my word. Hiram King of Tyre, from the rising of the sun, even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles, and in every place incense. At this word the coals which are in the pan on the altar of perfumes are lighted, and the incense burnt shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the heathen, said the Lord of hosts. Master of Ceremonies then orders the candidate to make the signs of admiration. Thrice puissant, what do you want, my brother? Master of Ceremonies, thrice puissant Grand Master, he asks the perfection of Masonry and to be taught the true pronunciation of God's ineffable name. Thrice puissant, brethren, do you consent that this knight of the Royal Arch shall be raised to the degree of perfection? The brethren consent by holding up their right hands. Thrice puissant, Before I initiate you, my brother, into the sacred mysteries of perfection, you must answer the questions I am now going to demand of you. Otherwise you must be sent back. Thrice puissant, are you an emptied apprentice? Candidate, thrice puissant, my brethren know me to be such. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the junior grand warden. Candidate gives them by advancing by the emptied apprentice step. Thrice puissant, are you a fellow craft? Candidate, I have seen the G, and know the password. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives fellow craft step, etc. Thrice puissant, are you a master mason? Candidate, I know the sprig of acacia, and everything it consummates. Thrice puissant, give the pass, sign, token and word to the junior grand warden. Candidate gives master's step, etc. As soon as he pronounces the real word, Mahabone, the brethren run and lunge their swords at him. Thrice puissant, what have you done? You affright us, my brother, on speaking this word so high. We are always ready to punish the indiscretion of those persons who pronounce this word so high and loud for fear some of the profane might hear you, but as you did not do it with a bad intention, we freely forgive you. Thrice puissant, are you a secret master? Candidate, I have passed from the square to the compass. I have seen the tomb of our respectable master Hiram Abiff and have shed tears thereat. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives the secret master's step, etc. Thrice puissant, are you a perfect master? Candidate, I have seen the 3 circles in the 3 perfect squares placed on the 2 columns across. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them, and as soon as he pronounces the word Jiva or Jehovah, all cry out, what do you say? Thrice puissant, we are always alarmed when we hear this word given, and are always ready to put any man to death who dare to pronounce it, or the least syllable of the sacred mysterious name. Thrice puissant, are you an intimate secretary? Candidate, my curiosity is satisfied, which had almost cost me my life. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you a provost and judge? Candidate, I render justice to all workmen without any distinction. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you an intendant of the building? Candidate, I have made the 5 steps of exactitude, have penetrated into the innermost part of the temple, have seen the effect of the great light in the middle of which I perceived certain Hebraic characters which were unknown to me. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you an elected knight? Candidate, 1 cavern received me, 1 lamp lighted me and 1 fountain refreshed me. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you a grand master elect? Candidate, my zeal and labor have procured me this degree. Thrice puissant, where were you received and by whom? Candidate, by Solomon himself in his study. Thrice puissant, when were you received and on what occasion? Candidate, when he sent me with my companions to search for the 2 other ruffians who destroyed our Grand Master Architect Hiram Abiff. Thrice puissant, how came they to be discovered? Candidate, by the industry of Benjel ben Gabi, Solomon's intendant in the county of Chuth. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you a sublime knight elected? Candidate, my name will inform you. Thrice puissant, what is your name? Candidate, Amerk is my true name. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, are you a grand master architect? Candidate, as I possess all the science of mathematics, I know also all the attributes. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior grand warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, what is the most sublime degree you have received in Masonry? Candidate, the 13th, which I received by permission of divine providence. Thrice puissant, explain this to me, my brother. Candidate, I searched in the unknown ruins and at length found the divine delta which had been promised the holy patriarchs should one day be found. Thrice puissant, what do you understand by the divine delta? Candidate, it is a triangular gold plate filled with rays, on which was engraved by Enoch the sacred name of Almighty God. Thrice puissant, I presume, my brother, you are acquainted with that mysterious name? Candidate, I am not. My time has not expired. The sacred name is only known by the grand elect, perfect and sublime masters. All my hope is in God, that I shall arrive at knowledge of it in fullness of time. Thrice puissant, what is your quality? Candidate, Knight of the Royal Arch. Thrice puissant, what is your name? Candidate, Gibilim or Jubilime. Thrice puissant, give the sign, token and word to the senior Grand Warden. Candidate gives them. Thrice puissant, what do you now desire, my brother? Candidate, the sublime degree of Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason. Thrice puissant, giving the signs of admiration. God will permit you this day to receive what you so much desire. Senior Grand Warden, Brother Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will now retire with the candidate until he is wanted. Master of Ceremonies and candidate retire. Thrice puissant, my dear brethren, do you again consent that this Knight of the Royal Arch be passed to the degree of perfection? All hold up their right hands in token of consent. Thrice puissant, let us applaud by 9, 7, 5 and 3, together, brethren. All applaud. Thrice puissant, brother Captain of the Guard, let the candidate be admitted. Captain of Guard, goes to the door, gives it. Let the candidate be admitted. Master of Ceremonies enters with candidate and conducts him around the lodge and to the altar, during which the thrice puissant recites, Thrice puissant, and Moses called all Israel and said unto them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your ears, this day, that you may learn, keep and do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. The Lord made not this covenant with our fathers but with us, even as who are all of us here alive this day. The Lord talketh with you face to face in the mount out of the midst of the fire. I stood between the Lord and you at that time to show you the word of the Lord, for ye were afraid by reason of the fire and went not up into the mount, saying, I am the Lord thy God which brought thee out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have none other God before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thy ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his servant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. These words the Lord spake unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire of the clouds and of the thick darkness with a great voice, and he added no more, and he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them to me. Thrice puissant, my brother, do you know in your conscience, since you have been made a Mason, of having behaved falsely to any of your brethren, or of having hurt them in their character or family, religion or country? Candidate answers as he thinks proper. Thrice puissant, have you ever communicated or let escape from you any of our mysteries to cowards? Candidate answers. Thrice puissant, what would you have done to the assassins of our respectable master Hiram Abiff had you lived in those days? Would you have revenged his death? Candidate, I would have done as Joab did. Thrice puissant, have you always been mindful of the obligations you have contracted in the presence of the grand architect of the universe? Candidate answers. Thrice puissant, did you ever find anything in your obligations which were contrary to and against your religion, the state, or anything else which could hurt your delicacy? Candidate answers. Thrice puissant, remember, my brother, If you approach cool and indifferent to our sacred mysteries, you will be the more blamable after receiving the degree of Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason than you would have been before, and will have more to answer for at the great and awful day of judgment, when the secret of all hearts should be disclosed. This degree, my brother, you are now about to receive is the perfection of Masonry. You will be bound to the order by an indispensable obligation, which is now unknown to you, but when it's communicated I hope it will be permanently fixed in your recollection. My dear brother, demonstrate to us the goodness of your heart by a steady pursuit of virtue and a sincere love for all good brethren, but particularly for those who receive you into their fellowship and have given you their support and protection, who are your fellows and superiors. What do you say? Candidate, I will. Thrice puissant, my dear brother, as you are now desirous of being taught the true pronunciation of God's ineffable name, are you ready to venture your life in the defense of that supreme mystery when it shall have been entrusted to your care, and are you desirous of contracting your new obligation? Candidate, I am, most sincerely. Thrice puissant, if you go, my brother, and wash your hands in the brazen sea to prove your innocence and that you have not revealed any of your former engagements. Our forefathers used the same ceremony when they were accused of crimes to prove themselves guiltless. Thrice puissant, brother master of ceremonies, conduct the candidate to the brazen sea. Let him purify his hands and then conduct him to the altar of sacrifice. Master of ceremonies, leads him to the brazen sea, causes him to wet and wipe his hands, and leads him to the altar of sacrifice. Causes him to recline his head against it, takes an axe and holds it suspended over the bare neck of the candidate. When he says, before this altar of a broken and contrite spirit, with the fire of holy zeal, drag by confession your sins and mortify them by hatred thereof, offer them up in a renewed consecration as a sacrifice acceptable and well-pleasing unto God. May we all offer up to him on the altar of our hearts sacrifices of humility and praise, with the fire of fervent charity. Let us offer a sacrifice of joy in the tabernacle of the Lord and sacrifice the sacrifice of thanksgiving, wherefore to do good and communicate. Let us forget not, for with such sacrifice is the Lord well pleased. Let us pray. Initiatory Prayer. Almighty and sovereign Grand Architect of the universe, thou who ridest in the heavens by thine angel, let all the earth keep silence before thee. There is no God like unto thee in the heavens above nor in the earth beneath. Thou who keepest covenant with and showest mercy unto thy servants who walk before thee with all their hearts, when we draw nigh thy majesty, may we ever preserve thy love and the characters of thy ineffable essence engraven indelibly upon our hearts. O purify our hearts, we beseech thee, by the fire of thy love, and guide our feet in the way of peace, the perfect path that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. May we all have an interest in that covenant which is well ordered in all things and sure. May we dwell together in unity and be all of one mind, having compassion one toward another and love as brethren. May all elect Masons, like the elect of God, put on a charity which is the bond of perfection. May our loins be girt with the girdle of truth, and, finally, having been faithful in all our course, may we be brought to behold the light ineffable and be admitted into that sacred place where the sun shall no more give light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light, but the Lord our Adonai shall be unto us an everlasting light and our God our glory. Amen. Thrice puissant, my brother, you are now in the most sacred and secret place in Masonry, the sacred mysteries of which are now going to be revealed to you as we repose the utmost confidence in your discretion. Come, my brother, add to our satisfaction by swearing fidelity to us. Master of ceremonies, leads the candidate 8 quick steps and 1 slow to the thrice puissant, having the signs of elected master on him, when he kneels and contracts his obligation. Obligation. Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason. I state your name in full, do most solemnly and sincerely swear on the Holy Bible, and in the presence of the Grand Architect of the universe and this respectable lodge of Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Masons, to be faithful and true to my religion. I do furthermore swear that I will never take up arms against my country or ever enter into any conspiracy or cabal against the same, or come to a knowledge of such intention from any other without communicating it to the proper authorities. I do furthermore swear never to reveal, either direct or indirectly, to the Grand Master Architect or Knight of the Royal Arch, or to any person or persons whatever to whom it doth not belong, the mysteries of this our sacred and high degree, or any other matter or thing that shall occur or take place in our lodge. I promise an equal regard for my brethren of this royal degree without distinction of riches or poverty, noble or ignoble birth, and to give no other preference but to those who are greatest in virtue. That I never will refuse to acknowledge a brother who is a good man in any situation, country or condition in which he may be placed. To support him if he's in want, if I can do it without injury to my family. I do furthermore swear that I will, if possible, meet my lodge at least twice a year, namely, on the 27th of December and the 24th of June, and as often as my affairs will conveniently permit. I promise to visit my brethren in sickness and help and assist them with my counsel, with my purse and with my arm. To give them consolation and assistance, whether in affliction or in pain, and in the common vicissitudes of life. I furthermore swear that I will never lie with my brother's wife, nor dishonor his sister, daughter nor any female of his family, knowing them to be such. I further promise that I will never make, or assist in making, or by my presence, give sanction to the making of any person to the degree of Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason who is not or has not been a master or nominal past master of a regular symbolic lodge. I furthermore swear that I will not acknowledge belonging to or be a member of any sublime lodge that may be established within the distance of 25 miles of one already legally and properly established. In failure of this, my obligation, I consent to have my belly cut open, my bowels torn from thence and given to the hungry vultures. So God help and maintain me in truth and equity. Amen. Thrice puissant, my brother, salute the Bible 3 times. Candidate obeys. Thrice puissant, rise, my brother, and receive the same consecration which every successive champion of the secret vault has received since its discovery. Thrice puissant, brother master of ceremonies, conduct the candidate to the altar of perfumes. Obeys and causes him to kneel. Thrice puissant, by the power transmitted to me and which I have acquired by my assiduity, labor and integrity, I make sacred your heart, lips and eyes with the holy oil that anointed the pious Aaron, the penitent David and the wise Solomon. May your heart ever throb with the hope of immortality, may your lips ever invoke the true name of the grand architect of the universe, and may your eyes behold him face to face and not fail when they awake in the dazzling glory of his presence. I now stamp you with the seal of the grand architect of the universe, stamps him, to the end that you may always live in his adorable presence and that he may always be in your heart and mind and that an ardent zeal and constancy may always be the rule of all your actions. Brother master of ceremonies, you will conduct the candidate round the lodge to the table of showbread. Thrice puissant, rehearses. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head which ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garments. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. So doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. If he reproves me, it is excellent oil. If thy brother be waxen old and poor and fallen into decay, thou shalt relieve him. Give of thy bread to feed the hungry and of thy wine to cheer the sorrowful, and forget not to pour the oil of consolation into the wounds which sickness and affliction may have rent in the bosom of thy fellow traveller. By kindness and commiseration fail not to pour the balm of oil and wine into the bleeding heart. Our labours of duty and love will soon be over. As the lightning writes its fiery path upon the dark cloud and disappears, so the rays of men walking amid the surrounding shades glitter for a moment through the gloom and vanish from our sight forever. Thrice puissant, now presents him with first the bread and then the wine. Eat with me of this bread and drink of this wine out of the same cup with me, that we may learn, thereby to succor each other in time of need by a mutual love and participation of what we possess. Both eat and drink. Thrice puissant, presents to him a gold ring, saying, receive this ring and let it be remembered by you as a symbol of the alliance you have now contracted with virtue and the virtuous. You are never, my dear brother, to part with it while you live, nor to bequeath it at your death except to your wife, your eldest son or your nearest friend. Candidate, I promise. All now partake of bread and wine and make a libation according to ancient custom, as practiced at the sacrifices. Thrice puissant now returns to the throne. Hiram, king of Tyre, thrice puissant Grand Master, shall we now communicate the true pronunciation of the ineffable name to the candidate? Thrice puissant, brother Hiram, to the best of your ability give the mystic name which the high priests of the Israelites knew how to utter. All form a circle round the altar. Thrice puissant, lo! Nature guards our vestal fire, which never, never can expire. With hearts that never change or falter, we here surround our common altar. Religion builds it, and a beam, from heaven's own throne, no fitful gleam, wraps it in flames, while bound in hand, we round this blazing altar stand. Let us, as elect Masons true, virtue's eternal league renew, while celebrating friendship's feast may love be our ever welcome guest. And now in adoration bow, to him to be and seals each vow. Glory to God who reigns above, and to our fellow creatures love. All kneel and communicate the word Jod. He. Via you. He. Around the altar. Hiram king of Tyre, the thrice puissant and candidate together. All rise. Thrice puissant, have a care, this pronunciation is probably erroneous, and it is vain for man to suppose that God has a proper name, or if he has warned that it could be uttered by the human voice. The various words by which he has been addressed in different ages and countries are all equally holy and true, if he who speaks them has a pure conception of the divine attributes and perfect love toward the divine entity. His name is unutterable. No lips can speak it, no ear can hear it, but it resounds in the heart of him who loves and adores. We greet you, my brother, as a knight of the sacred vault. Thrice puissant, brother Grand Master of ceremonies, you will now communicate to the candidate the signs, token and words. Signs of obligation. Place the right hand on the left side of the abdomen and draw it quickly and horizontally across the body to the right side. First token. Join the right hands, reverse them thrice. The first brother says, Brith. The second says, Nda. The first then says, Shelmuth. Words. First password, Shibboleth. First covered word, Jabulum. Sign of fire. Raise the right hand open to the left cheek, the palms outward, at the same time grasping the elbow with the left hand. Second token. Give the master's grip. One says, Can you go further? Answer. The other slips his hand along the other's forearm up to the elbow. Each then places his left hand on the other's right shoulder and balance thrice, the legs crossed from the right. Word. Second covered word, Makobime, interpreted, that's he. He is dead. Second password, Elhanan. Signs of admiration. Raise both hands open to heaven, the head inclined, the eyes directed upwards. Afterward place the first two fingers of the right hand on the lips. Third token. Seize each other's right hand, grasp each other's right shoulder with the left hand and then pass left hands behind each other's back as if to bring one another closer. Third covered word, Adonai. Third password, Bomeke, Bamara, interpreted, thank God we have found. Sacred word, Jehovah. Grand word, Jod. He. Van. He. The grand ineffable and real name of the Almighty Grand Architect of the universe, are never to be pronounced. Battery, 24 strokes by 3, 5, 7 and 9. March, 8 hurried steps and then, 1 slower, altogether 9. Age, 7 times 7 years. Hours of work, from high 12 till midnight. Thrice puissant, my dear brother, I now salute you as a grand elect, perfect and sublime Mason, and with great pleasure decorate you with the symbols of the grade. Collar. This collar of flame color is emblematic of ardent zeal, affection and charity. Crown. The crown on your jewel is a symbol of the royal origin of the grade. Compass. The compass extended to 90 degrees denotes the extensive knowledge of the grand elect. Sun. In the center, that our actions should be as open as the full blaze of the noonday sun and our charity as diffusive as its beams. Jewel. This jewel suspended on your breast should remind you on to be attentive to your duties and admonishes you ever to walk so as to adorn your station. Girdle. I also invest you with the girdle of a grand elect, perfect and sublime Mason. The girdle was used of old to strengthen the body and to enable man to continue and persist in his labors. It is therefore an emblem of activity, promptness and perseverance. The girdle was used to bind on the garments and prevent them from flying open and discovering our nakedness, and is an emblem of charity, to the observance of which virtue you have been laid under new obligations. The girdle was also used for ornament and beauty. Let it be your endeavor to be adorned with and rich in those virtues which its various colors represent. These are arranged by 3, 5, 7 and 9. The 3 are blue, red and yellow, by a due mixture of which the primitive colors are formed. The 5 consists of these 3 and a green and purple. The 7 of the 5 with white and black. And the 9 of these 7 and stone and flame colors. The blue is an emblem of friendship and fidelity. The red of zeal. The yellow, which resembles gold, of wisdom, which said the wisest of kings, is better than fine gold. The green is an emblem of hope. The purple of dignity and majesty of conduct. Purple is a Tyrian color and reminds us of the alliance into which you have now entered. The white is an emblem of innocence. The black of modesty and seriousness of demeanor. The next color is that of stone, as stone is distinguished for firmness and durability. So this color teaches us constancy and decision of character. The flame color reminds us to cultivate ardent affection and charity. The various colors united in this girdle are expressive of that unity and the olive interwoven of that peace which should link us together. And as these colors shine in your girdle, so let the virtues they represent shine in your heart and life. Your apron I now invest you with is white, lined and bordered with crimson. These colors symbolized have already been explained to you. Thus, my brother, by your meritorious and blameless conduct, constancy and integrity you have attained the title of Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason, which is the summit of ancient craft masonry, and upon your arrival to which I sincerely congratulate you. I most earnestly recommend to you the strictest care and circumspection in your walk through life that the sublime mysteries of this degree be not profaned, and as to what remains of completing your knowledge in the ancient state of masonry I will call your attention to our Grand Orator, who will now deliver the discourse of this degree. Discourse by Grand Orator. My dear brother, when the Temple of Solomon was finished, those masons who were employed in the construction of that stately edifice acquired immortal honors. Their order became more uniformly established and regulated than it had been before. Their delicacy in admitting new members into their order brought it to a high degree of respect, as the merit of each candidate was the only thing they paid attention to. With these principles instilled into their minds, many of the Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Masons, being able workmen, left Jerusalem after the dedication of the temple and dispersed themselves among the neighboring kingdoms, instructing all who applied and were found worthy of receiving the sublime mysteries of the royal art. Notwithstanding these precautions, the order in the 3 first degrees multiplied over the face of the earth, so that their numbers were without measure. And by their indiscriminate admission their secrets were disclosed, their knowledge became common and the degrees fell into great disrepute. The Grand Elect and Perfect Masons were so cautious in concealing the mysteries of the higher degrees of Masonry that they determined to initiate only as far as the 3rd degree. You are aware, my brother, that many unworthy Masons of the lower degrees have by their imprudence suffered their signs and tokens to be discovered by cowards. These occurrences chagrined the Perfect Masons, who were but few in number, and they endeavored to stop the evil, but all their exertions were fruitless. The craft degenerated, as receptions were obtained too easily. The intervals of the degrees were broken into too hastily, and mere amusement was preferred to useful instruction. Innovations increased and new doctrines were introduced which destroyed all the old and useful regulations of the order. These differences occasioned disputes, quarrels, heart-burnings, jealousies and dissensions, which in the end produced the discovery of the mysteries of the first 3 degrees to the vulgar and profane. How happy it is, my brother, that those unguarded brethren were ignorant of the sublime mysteries of the Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Masons. Let us, my brother, endeavor to prevent these degrees from sharing the same unhappy fate by preserving them in their ancient perfection as we have traveled to obtain the knowledge of the ancient elect, and to imitate them in their devotions, whose principal study was the contemplation of the adorable attributes of the Grand Architect of the universe. Solomon expressly chose this word for the ancient masters to fill the principal workmen with veneration for the great and eternal God, to whom the temple was dedicated, and also to incite them to perform their several duties cheerfully while employed in erecting a temple to his holy name. This wise king knew the force of his most holy name. He also knew that he had appeared to Moses in the burning bush and had declared to him his true name, and that he was the only patriarch who knew it. Also that he would be invoked by no other name in the temple. My brother, the real and ineffable name of the Grand Architect of the universe as given by God to Moses was the Master's word. When our Grand Master Hiram-Abith was killed, by his courage and magnanimity its discovery was prevented, which frustrated the hopes of his murderers. It was then determined never to entrust a secret of so much importance to any person. And another word was used in its stead until the discovery of the brilliant delta by the Knights of the Royal Arch in the ruins of Enoch, on which was engraved the ineffable name which constitutes the perfection of Masonry. Solomon, king of Israel, and Hiram, king of Tyre, communicated the interpretation of the characters on the brilliant delta to none but the grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons, under whose immediate protection they placed it in the sacred vault under the sanctum sanctorum of the temple, by which Karens have never been able to discover the place where the sacred name was deposited, as a strict guard was kept to prevent the admission of any but the grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons. The temple was begun in the 4th year of the reign of Solomon, the 3rd after the death of David, 480 years after the passage of the Red Sea, and on the 2nd day of the 2nd month, called Chia, in the year of the world 2992, and was completed in a little more than 7 years. After a solemn invocation of the blessings of the eternal God at the dedication of the house erected to his name, Solomon held a feast with all the children of Israel for 14 days, during which period he gave audience to all the workmen. The first was the grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons who were introduced into the sacred vault, and at the same time the grand master architects were in the king's apartment. He admitted to the degree of perfection some of the most virtuous of the brethren and made them most solemnly promise to live together in peace, unity and concord, and to exercise the works of charity and benevolence in imitation of their deceased chief, and to make justice and equity the basis of their actions. To observe a profound silence of this degree and not to reveal it to any person but those who are entitled to receive it and had given proof of their zeal, fervor and constancy in support of the craft. To assist each other and to relieve their mutual wants. To inflict vengeance on traitors and to punish perfidy and injustice. The king then blessed them in the name of the Lord God of Israel and showed them the Ark of Alliance opened, from whence the eternal Jehovah, the grand architect of the universe, delivered his oracles. He ordered many sacrifices and admitted them to a libation, embraced them and gave each of them a gold ring as a proof of the alliance which they had formed with virtue and the virtuous, and made them several presents with permission either to remain in Jerusalem or to travel into foreign countries. On the 2nd day he admitted the masters and knights elected into the middle chamber and there made them promise in the most sacred manner never to depart from the principles of virtue. To bear in their recollection the conduct of their respectable and much lamented chief as a model, to live in unity with each other in their wants and necessities, and to faithfully guard the mysteries of the order and never communicate them to any but those who had merit sufficient to deserve them. He then gave them the degree of Grand Master Architect and decorated them with the honors thereof, and also bestowed on them some other favors and permitted them also either to remain in Jerusalem or retire as they thought proper. On the 3rd day he gave audience to the fellow crafts in the eastern part of the temple and rewarded those who appeared to him to be virtuous with the degree of master. On the entered apprentices he conferred the degree of fellow craft and introduced them into the porch of the temple. He then made them promise never to forsake those principles of virtue, of which their ancient chief was a memorable example. To live united and mutually to assist each other in carefully preserving the signs, tokens and words, and never to communicate them to any but those whose unexceptionable characters entitle them to that favor. He then made them several presents and permitted them to retire out of the city if they pleased and to enable those to prosecute their journey with ease and satisfaction, and as farther reward for their good conduct he gave orders to his intendants to defray their expenses. Thus far this wise and virtuous king of Israel behaved worthy of himself and gained universal favor. But in process of time, when he had advanced in years, his understanding became impaired and he grew deaf to the voice of the Lord and was strangely irregular in his conduct. Proud of having erected an edifice to his Maker and much intoxicated with his great power, he plunged into all manner of licentiousness and debauchery and profaned the temple by offering incense to the idol Moloch instead of offering it to the living God. The grand elect and perfect Masons saw this and were sorely grieved and fearful that his apostasy would end in some dreadful consequence and perhaps spring upon them their enemies, whom Solomon vainly and wantonly defied. The people, copying the follies and vices of their king, became proud and idolatrous, neglecting the worship of the true and living God for that of idols. Those Masons who had instructed their children in the paths of virtue, agreeable to the principles of their order, endeavored by their counsel and example to deter their fellow citizens from impiety and licentiousness, but without success. A great majority of good Masons left Jerusalem that they might not behold the dreadful punishment which awaited the idolatry of the people. As an adequate punishment for the licentiousness of the people, God permitted divers nations to make war on them and to pillage their country. 10 of the tribes fell from the house of David and elected Jeroboam their king, by the style of king of Israel. Rehoboam governed the tribes of Judah. In this manner were the tribes of Israel divided and under 2 distinct governments for 254 years, when the 10 revolted tribes, having become weak and degenerated by following the wickedness and idolatry of the kings who governed them, fell a prey to Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, who in the reign of Hoshea, king of Israel, besieged the city of Samaria, laid their country waste and utterly extirpated their government. Such was the wretched fate of a people who disdained subjection to the laws of the house of David, and whose impiety ended in their destruction. In the 3rd month of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, took the city of Jerusalem and carried off the king captive and cut into pieces all the vessels of the temple. Zedekiah was then made king of Judah and had reigned 11 years. On the 7th day of the 5th month called Abib, Nebuzaradan, captain of the guards, entered Judah with fire and sword, took and sacked the city of Jerusalem, razed its walls and destroyed that superb model of excellence, the temple. The people were carried captives to Babylon and the conquerors carried with them all the treasures of the temple. This happened in the year of the world 3470, 470 years, 6 months and 10 days after its dedication. The grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons who were at Jerusalem at that time exerted themselves with great bravery and fortitude in its defense, but without effect. For as soon as the temple had fallen into one general heap of ruins they directed their whole attention to the preservation of the sacred vault from injury and the golden plate from being discovered. For that purpose a party fought their way into the sacred vault, where they found the golden plate on the agate stone uninjured. They also discovered the body of Galahad, son of Sophoris, a considerable man among the perfect Masons and chief of the Rites. Galahad was the guardian of the sacred vault and took care of the burning lamp. His fortitude and magnanimity was not excelled by Hiram Abiff, who 400 years before lost his life rather than to reveal the Master's word. Galahad preferred being buried under the ruins of the temple rather than to discover to the barbarians by his coming out of the place where the greatest treasures were deposited. They then cried Bomake and Bamara. That is to say, thank God, we have found it. This is the grand password known by those who are guardians of the sacred treasure. It is difficult to express the excessive joy which they felt on the discovery of the sacred word, and, being fearful that the sacred characters should be found out, they defaced it and broke down the tables of gold, as they found it impossible to carry away the agate triangular stone. They therefore overset and broke the pedestal on which the sacred name had been deposited. They took from Galahad the robes of the chief of the Levites and retired, well satisfied with their success and determined that in future no trace of the sacred name should be found but in the hearts of good Masons. From this determination we derived the custom of spelling the most holy name of names, letter by letter, without giving a syllable. This word was used in the temple when it was rebuilt under the order of Cyrus and is observed by the grand elected to this day. Once a year the high priest, in the middle of a number of brethren who had received the degree of perfection, formed themselves in a circle to spell the sacred word, and at the same time the people without the temple were ordered to make a great noise lest they should be overheard. By which means the habit of writing or pronouncing the great and awful name was lost, as they were uncertain of the number of letters which composed it and of the real interpretation and sublime meaning or the great name of their God. It defines his essence, his existence, his unity, his goodness and his eternity in one word. The grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons who had penetrated into the ruins of Enoch and who acquired the inestimable treasure left Judah and went into other countries. Some went into Egypt and Assyria and others crossed the sea and went into Europe. Many settled in England, Scotland and Ireland. They retained their virtue and faith inviolable and afforded each other those fraternal acts of kindness which endear us to each other and gave to the world such striking proofs of wisdom, virtue and integrity that they became the admiration of the people among whom they lived. In consequence of which innumerable applications were made to them for initiations. The good brethren chose from among them such as were found famed for the exercise of virtue and morality and invited them to deplore the uncertainty of human events. They also laid before them the conduct of Solomon as a memorable example to shun vice and practice virtue in imitation of their beloved and much lamented master Hiram Abith. They exhorted them to invoke the blessing of the adorable I Am, who was, and is, and will be the eternal Father of those who love him and obey his laws. Many of them were initiated agreeable to their wishes. When the princes of Europe united their forces to conquer the Holy Land and deliver Jerusalem from the hands of the barbarians who had it in possession, a number of the Grand Elect with other Masons voluntarily offered their services in so holy an enterprise upon condition of being allowed the privilege of choosing their own chief, which was granted them. They hoisted their own standard and departed. In the tumult and disorder of war they still retained and exercised the most virtuous principles. Union and harmony reigned in their tents. They lived together without distinction of rank and acknowledged no general but in time of action. They gave mutual assistance to each other and extended their charity to the indigent and distressed, even among their enemies. In action they were valiant and enterprising and rendered such signal service to the Confederate army that they received from them the highest honors. The princes were surprised at the prodigies of valor which were performed by the Masons, and when they learned that their courage and zeal, their virtue, their disinterestedness and union were founded on the broad basis of the mystic institution, they solicited the honor of initiation. The princes promised a strict observance of all the laws and regulations of the craft and were initiated into the Masonic mysteries. They were instructed in our history and taught the mystery of universal religion and benevolence which binds our members together in one band, in every clime and in every station of life. The great political revolutions which have so frequently changed the form of empires have never affected our glorious profession. We possess all the principles and forms in their pristine purity. Let us, my brother, offer our prayers at the throne of mercy that we may never be divided. Amen. Lecture. Thrice puissant, Brother Senior Grand Warden, what are you? Senior Grand Warden, thrice puissant, I am a Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason. There is nothing but what is revealed to me. Thrice puissant, where were you received? Senior Grand Warden, in a place where the rays of the sun and moon are not wanted. Thrice puissant, where is that place situated? Senior Grand Warden, under the sanctum sanctorum of the Grand Architect of the Universe, in a lodge and sacred place called the Sacred Vault. Thrice puissant, who introduced you into that place? Senior Grand Warden, the most wise and puissant of all kings. Thrice puissant, in what way did you enter that place? Senior Grand Warden, through a long narrow passage composed of 9 arches. Thrice puissant, how were you introduced into the holy vault? Senior Grand Warden, by 3 knocks. Thrice puissant, to what do these 3 knocks allude? Senior Grand Warden, to the age of my apprenticeship and the number of knights elected who penetrated into the bowels of the earth and took from thence the precious treasure of the Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Masons. Thrice puissant, what followed these knocks? Senior Grand Warden, 5 other knocks, which distinguished the age of the fellow craft and also the number which was completed by the arrival of Sublime, Joabatum's token with the precious treasure which divine providence had ordained to be deposited in the sacred vault, where these 3 brethren found it. Solomon, king of Israel, and Hiram, king of Tyre, making the number. Thrice puissant, what answer was made to these 5 knocks? Senior Grand Warden, 7 other knocks, which alluded to 3 things. First, the age of the Master. Second, that there were chosen 7 expert brethren to replace our Grand Master Hiram Abith. Third, that Solomon was employed 7 years in the construction of the temple. Thrice puissant, what answer was made to the 7 knocks? Senior Grand Warden, 9 loud knocks, which marked the age of a perfect master, and which, when represented by the numbers of the Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Masons, make 81. Thrice puissant, what followed these 9 knocks? Senior Grand Warden, the door of the 9th vault was opened and I entered into the most holy and sacred place of all the earth. At the same time I pronounced Shibboleth, 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 with an aspiration. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of that word? Senior Grand Warden, it is the first password and signifies plenty. Thrice puissant, what did you perceive on entering that holy place? Senior Grand Warden, the most brilliant light, which dazzled my eyes and struck me with amazement. Thrice puissant, what was the brilliant light that so affected you? Senior Grand Warden, It was the ineffable and real name of the Almighty and Grand Architect of the universe, engraven on a triangular plate of gold upon an agate stone, which had been deposited there by one of the ancient patriarchs and was found by the Knights of the Royal Arch. Thrice puissant, what do you call the pedestal on which it was placed? Senior Grand Warden, the Pillar of Beauty. Thrice puissant, in what manner did we receive this brilliant delta? Senior Grand Warden, by the laborious search of the ancient Knights of the Royal Arch, who discovered this inestimable treasure among the ruins of the temple built by the Patriarch Enoch. Thrice puissant, explain the name to me, Senior Grand Warden. I cannot. Thrice puissant, how will you make me sensible that you know it? Senior Grand Warden, Makobin and Mutbina were substituted in the place of it. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of these words? Senior Grand Warden, understanding, knowledge and wisdom. Thrice puissant, to whom did God first communicate this word? Senior Grand Warden, to Enoch before the flood, by whose care it was preserved and transmitted to us, and also to Moses, when the Almighty showed himself to him on Mount Sinai. Thrice puissant, what became of the word afterwards? Senior Grand Warden, it was effaced, and the golden plate on which it was engraved was melted down the pious and zealous masons, after the destruction of the temple by Nebuzaradan, being fearful that the divine delta should fall into the hands of the impious, the sacred name would be profaned. Thrice puissant, what have you perceived in the degree of illustrious knight? Senior Grand Warden, 12 great lights. Thrice puissant, what do they allude to? Senior Grand Warden, 12 masters who were elected by Solomon to carry on the works of the temple after the death of Hiram-Abith and who commanded the 12 tribes of Israel. Thrice puissant, what were the names of the 12 masters? Senior Grand Warden, Joabit, Stokin, Terry, Morphe, Aliguba, Dawson, Harim, Berthama, Tito, Zabal, Binachad and Tabor. The first 9 were those who were elected to search for the traitor Jubilam, Akirop, one of the assassins of Hiram-Abith. Thrice puissant, over what tribes had they the inspection? Senior Grand Warden, Joabit over the tribe of Judah, Stokin over the tribe of Benjamin, Terry over the tribe of Simeon, Morphe over the tribe of Ephraim, Aliguba over the tribe of Manasseh, Dawson over the tribe of Zebulun, Harim over the tribe of Dan, Bertham over the tribe of Asher, Tito over the tribe of Naphtali, Zerbel over the tribe of Reuben, Binachad over the tribe of Issachar, Tabor over the tribe of Gad. These masters superintended the working of the tribes, paid them their wages, and rendered daily an account of their proceedings to Solomon. Thrice puissant, do the lights allude to anything else? Senior Grand Warden, to the 12 princes of Solomon, and their governments, who furnished sustenance for the workmen and the king's household. Thrice puissant, what are their names and the countries over which they presided? Senior Grand Warden, Ha, the son of Ha, Intendant General in Mount Ephraim. Aminadab, son of Aminadab, in the region of Dor, he was married to Yaphtha, Solomon's daughter. Hezd, the son of Hezd, in Amboth and all Heper, etc. Baana, son of Baana, in Taurich Megiddo, etc. Deter, son of Deter, in Maaz Bet-Shemesh, etc. Jeba, son of Jeba, in Rainoth Gilead, etc. Ahinadab, son of Joddu, in Mahanaim, etc. Ahimaaz, in Naphtali, married Basemath, Solomon's daughter. Baana, son of Hastio, in Ashreloth, etc. Jehoshaphat, son of Purna, in Issachar, etc. Shemer, son of Elah, in Benjamin, etc. Jeba, son of Uthri, in the country of Gilead, etc. Thrice puissant, why do the secret masters wear the ivory key? Senior Grand Warden, to remind them that the grand elect, perfect and sublime masons are the only depositories of ancient masonry, the secrets of which must be carefully locked up from the profane. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of the tomb at the east door of the temple? Senior Grand Warden, it is the tomb wherein was placed the body of our much lamented and respectable master Hiram-Abith, which Solomon caused to be erected there as a testimony of the high esteem the brethren had for that great architect. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of the balance? Senior Grand Warden, it teaches us to be just and equitable. Thrice puissant, What signifies the sword which the Grand Master of Ceremonies held naked in his hand at your entrance? Senior Grand Warden, it is employed to defend our illustrious Grand Master and to punish those who shall depart from virtue, and shall be so perfidious as to reveal the secrets committed to their care. Solomon gave those who were deserving the name of favorite, and constituted them Sublime Knights, decorated them with a large black ribbon, on which was painted a flaming heart opposite their breast. He desired them not to travel without this mark of distinction, and instead of the poniard gave them a sword of justice and said, "As you have been the conductors of the work of the temple, you are now to defend it with the sword." Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of the inflamed heart? Senior Grand Warden, the ardent charity we should have for each other. Thrice puissant, what is your word in quality of knight elected? Senior Grand Warden, big old curl, and signifies by him or through him everything was discovered. There are 3 passwords necessary to be known. First, Nechem, which signifies vengeance. Second, Stokin, the name of him who found the body of Hiram-Abith under the sprig of acacia. Third, Joabut, who cut off the head of Abiram, Akoop, and brought it to Solomon in company with his 8 companions. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of the 8 lights together and one by itself? Senior Grand Warden, the 9 elected who went in search of jubileum, Akerop. Thrice puissant, have you received any distinction since you have been made a knight elected? Senior Grand Warden Solomon, being willing to reward the trouble of the elected, advanced them to the degree of Sublime Knights and joined to their chapter 3 zealous brethren to make for number 12. He showed them the riches of the temple and gave to each a golden key that they might be distinguished from the rest of the brethren, and gave them the name of Myth or Amaja, a word which signifies truth, or a true man on all occasions. He also gave them command of the 12 tribes of Israel. Thrice puissant, have you penetrated any farther? Senior Grand Warden, Solomon soon after initiated me into the degree of Grand Master Architect, to recompense me for my zeal, fervor and constancy, and is the end to lead me to the celestial throne. Thrice puissant, what was the name of the stranger who acquainted Solomon with the place where the traitor Jubileum, Akerop, had secreted himself? Senior Grand Warden, his name was Perignum I. He was a squarer and polisher of marble in the quarry of Jubileum, near Joppa, not far from the sprig of acacia. When the body of Hiram-Abith was found, he was not enrolled among the workmen of the temple, but for this piece of essential service Solomon rewarded him and enrolled him among the workmen and changed his name to Sublime because he continued to walk therein. Thrice puissant, what signifies the 3 lights placed at the door of the elected knights? Senior Grand Warden, the 3 fellow crafts who assassinated our respectable master Hiram-Abith. Thrice puissant, what was their origin and what were their names? Senior Grand Warden, they were from the tribe of Dan, and sons of the same parent. They were called first Jubileum, Akerop, and Bisama ben, Akerop. The second was Jubelo, Graveclot, and the youngest Jubela, Gibbs. Thrice puissant, what became of the 2 younger brothers of Akerop? Senior Grand Warden, they fled to the country of Chuth. Thrice puissant, how came they to be discovered in that country? Senior Grand Warden, by the assiduity of Bengabi, Solomon's intendant in the country of Chuth. Thrice puissant, what method did Solomon take to have them arrested? Senior Grand Warden, he demanded them of Marcha, king of Chuth, to whom he wrote on that occasion. Thrice puissant, who was the bearer of Solomon's letter to King Marcha? Senior Grand Warden, Zerbal, captain of the king's guards. Thrice puissant, did the king of Uth hesitate to deliver them up? Senior Grand Warden, no, he gave a guard to escort the messengers and search with them. Thrice puissant, where were they found? Senior Grand Warden, in a quarry called Bendaka. Thrice puissant, had not Solomon an intendant of that name? Senior Grand Warden, he had, one who was married to one of his daughters. Thrice puissant, how came they to discover the 2 assassins? Senior Grand Warden, by the intelligence of a shepherd who showed them the place of their retreat. Thrice puissant, who were the persons who saw them first? Senior Grand Warden, Zerbal and Elignaim, after 5 days' search. Thrice puissant, in what manner were they carried up to Jerusalem? Senior Grand Warden, in chains, with their hands fastened behind their backs. Thrice puissant, what was the form of the chains? Senior Grand Warden, a square, a rule and a mallet, on which was engraved the kind of punishment they were to suffer at Jerusalem. Thrice puissant, on what day did they arrive at Jerusalem? Senior Grand Warden, on the 15th day of the month Nisan, anno 3775, which answers to the month of April. Thrice puissant, how long was it before the assassins were executed? Senior Grand Warden, 1 month. Thrice puissant, how many masters did Solomon send to search for them? Senior Grand Warden, there were 15, of which number I was one. Thrice puissant, were there no other persons? Senior Grand Warden, there were troops which were sent as an escort. Thrice puissant, what was done with the 2 assassins when they arrived at Jerusalem? Senior Grand Warden, they were carried before Solomon, to whom they confessed their guilt, after which they were confined 1 day and 1 night in a dungeon in the tower of Akazar, after which they were led to execution. Thrice puissant, what kind of punishment did they receive? Senior Grand Warden, at the hour of 10 in the morning they were tied, naked, to 2 stakes, their arms and legs extended. Their bodies were then opened from their necks to the middle, and in that condition they were exposed to the heat of the sun for 8 hours, during which time the flies and other insects feasted on their blood and entrails. At length their cries were so lamentable that it drew tears from the executioner, who in commiseration of their suffering severed their heads from their bodies, which were given to the wild beasts for food, and their heads were placed on the south and west pinnacles of the temple. The head of Agirop, who was killed some time before, was placed on the east pinnacle, as a memento to the people to avoid such horrible crimes. Thrice puissant, what are the words of the elected of 15? Senior Grand Warden, Zerbal and Eleg name. The first is the name of the captain of the guards who apprehended the assassins in the quarry, and the last God's people. Thrice puissant, what hour was it when the 2 ruffians expired? Senior Grand Warden, at 6 in the evening vengeance was completed. Thrice puissant, what is the meaning of the letters B\N\S which you see in the triangle of the intimate secretary? Senior Grand Warden, the alliance of Moses and Aaron, the same of Solomon with Hiram king of Tyre. They also signify alliance, promise and perfection. Thrice puissant, what is the word of the Grand Master Architect? Senior Grand Warden, Eabanain, Master Builder. Thrice puissant, in what manner were you afterwards rewarded? Senior Grand Warden, Divine Providence was graciously pleased to direct my researches into the bowels of the earth, wherein I discovered the brilliant delta on which was engraved the sacred name of the Almighty. As a reward for my zeal, Solomon gave me the degree of guardian of the narrow passage which leads to the sacred vault. Thrice puissant, what quality did you receive on that occasion? Senior Grand Warden, that of Knight of the Royal Arch. Thrice puissant, by whom were you received? Senior Grand Warden, by Solomon king of Israel and Hiram king of Tyre. As a reward for my labor they also gave the same rank to my 2 companions Joabot and Stokin. Thrice puissant, what was your name then? Senior Grand Warden, Gibilam. Thrice puissant, what is the sign of the Knight of the Royal Arch? Senior Grand Warden, that of admiration. Thrice puissant, what is the token and word? Senior Grand Warden, here it is, he gives it, the word is Jabulam. Thrice puissant, are you a grand elect, perfect and sublime Mason? Senior Grand Warden, I have penetrated into the most sacred place of all the earth. Thrice puissant, what is the name of that place? Senior Grand Warden, it was first called the Secret Vault, but after the divine delta was placed therein it was called the Sacred Vault. Thrice puissant, where do the grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons work? Senior Grand Warden, in a holy place underground. Thrice puissant, where is that place situated? Senior Grand Warden, under the sanctum sanctorum of the Temple of Jerusalem. Thrice puissant, what is the work of the perfect and sublime Mason? Senior Grand Warden, respectfully to preserve in our hearts the sacred mysteries of Masonry. To sanctify those who have been initiated. To practice the purest morality, and to aid and assist, to succor and defend our worthy brethren. Thrice puissant, where do the perfect and sublime Masons travel? Senior Grand Warden, through all the equators of the globe to spread the knowledge circumflex greater than F their divine mysteries. Thrice puissant, what does the sacred vault contain? Senior Grand Warden, the precious treasure of the grand elect, perfect and sublime Masons. Thrice puissant, what is that precious treasure? Senior Grand Warden, the divine delta on which is engraved the sacred name of the Almighty God. Thrice puissant, where is that precious treasure deposited? Senior Grand Warden, on a pedestal which is called the Pillar of Beauty. Thrice puissant, what is your name? Senior Grand Warden, Jabulum or Gibulum. Thrice puissant, what does that name signify? Senior Grand Warden, elected friend, favorite and zealous brother. Thrice puissant, how many figurative signs have the Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Masons? Senior Grand Warden, 9, but 3 are most necessary to be known. Thrice puissant, give me the principal ones. Senior Grand Warden, the first is cutting your belly across, in token of your obligation. The second is relative to the burning bush, and the third is silence, by putting the first 2 fingers of the right hand on the lips. Thrice puissant, go on my brother and give me the 6 others. Senior Grand Warden, the fourth is admiration, the fifth interlace all your fingers, hands raised over the head, palms outward, this sign verbs to call a brother. The sixth admiration, answer, look over your shoulders alternately. The seventh, clap your hands on your thighs. The eighth, put your hands, shut, to your mouth, as if to pull out your tongue, then place it on your heart. The ninth, raise your hand as if you had a poniard in it to strike a brother's forehead, to show that vengeance is completed. Thrice puissant, what are the tokens? Senior Grand Warden, the principal ones are 3 in number. First, that of intimate secretary, B_N_S_, which signifies promises of a complete alliance. The second, circumspection, advance the hands reciprocally first to the master token, then to the wrist, then to the elbow, and the word is Gabayan. The third is defiance, resistance and remembrance, advance reciprocally the hands as in the 4th degree, drawing them to each other 3 times. Then place the left hand on the brother's back, then on his neck as if to raise him. Thrice puissant, what are the passwords? Senior Grand Warden, there are 3 principal ones. The first is Shibboleth 3 times with an aspiration. The second is Elhanan. The third is most essential to be known and is Bomeke, Bamara, which is interpreted, thank God we have found it. Thrice puissant, what are the covered words? Senior Grand Warden, there are 3, the is Sublime or Jabulum. The second is Makobime, interpreted, that's he. He is dead. The third is Adonai, Supreme Lord of all, thrice puissant, give me the word? Senior Grand Warden, thrice puissant, I am not able to pronounce it. Mutbina and bone were substituted in its place. You know mean, Adonai is the last covered word for this mysterious one. Thrice puissant, how do you enter into a lodge of perfection? Senior Grand Warden, with firmness and constancy in my heart. Thrice puissant, why do you always stand in a lodge of perfection in a posture of surprise? Senior Grand Warden, in allusion to Moses, who was obliged to stand in that position when he received the table of the laws from the Almighty, and also the 2 kings, Solomon and Hiram, who were seized with surprise when they beheld the sacred name on the golden plate which was brought to them by Gibelum, Joabatim's token. Thrice puissant, what signifies the signs of cutting your belly? Senior Grand Warden, an allusion to the wounds of our respectable master Hiram Abith. Thrice puissant, what are the tools of a Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Mason? Senior Grand Warden, a shovel, crow and pickaxe. Thrice puissant, what use do they make of them? Senior Grand Warden, they serve to discover and raise the square stone on the top of the arches which were built by Enoch, and also to break the pedestal on which the treasure was deposited when the temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, and to prevent the sacred name of names from falling into the hands of the profane. They melted down the plate and determined never to write, engrave or pronounce it, but to treasure it in their hearts. Thrice puissant, when the Grand Elect came to the vault, did they find anything besides the Pillar of Beauty? Senior Grand Warden, yes, they found the body of Galad. Thrice puissant, who was Galad? Senior Grand Warden, he was the son of Sophoris, a considerable man among the perfect Masons, and chief of the Levites. Galad was the guardian of the sacred vault, and to him was entrusted the care of the lamp which burnt without ceasing in that sacred and holy place. His fortitude and magnanimity were not excelled by Hiram Abith, who 400 years before lost his life rather than revealed the secrets of the Master Mason. so Gallard preferred being buried under the ruin rather than to discover to the barbarians by his coming out of the place where the greatest of treasures were deposited. Thrice puissant, what did the Grand Elect do with the body of this worthy chief? Senior Grand Warden, they wished to follow the example of Solomon, by burying him with every Masonic honor and then to erect a superb monument to his memory, and perpetuate to future generations the heroic sacrifice he had made of himself to preserve the inestimable treasure of the sacred vault of which he was the faithful keeper. But the distress in which the brethren were involved by the capture of Jerusalem prevented it. They took away his habit, consisting of his tiara and a lobe of fine linen which they burnt, and they interred his body in the ruins of the sacred vault under the Pillar of Beauty. Thrice puissant, how did Solomon live after the dedication of the temple? Senior Grand Warden, this wise king, this king so virtuous whom God had appointed to rule over the children of Israel, became deaf to the voice of the Lord, and was strangely irregular in his conduct. Proud of having erected an edifice to his Maker, and intoxicated with his power, he plunged into all manner of licentiousness and debauchery, and profaned the temple of the Most High by offering incense to the idol Moloch, which only should have been offered to the living God. These crimes penetrated deeply into the hearts of the good Masons, the greater part of whom voluntarily exiled themselves from their country, that they might not be spectators of the punishment which they feared the Almighty would inflict upon Jerusalem. They accordingly left Jude's and went into foreign countries among strangers. Thrice puissant, how many years did Solomon reign? Senior Grand Warden, 40 years, and died when he was 94, and was buried in Jerusalem. Thrice puissant, who was king of Jerusalem after Solomon? Senior Grand Warden, Rehoboam, his son. Thrice puissant, did anything remarkable happen in his reign? Senior Grand Warden, God permitted the kingdom of Israel to be divided as a punishment for the sins of the people of Jerusalem, as had been predicted by the prophets. Thrice puissant, relate to me the punishment of the kingdom of Judah. Senior Grand Warden, when the crimes of the people had become insufferably great, God permitted Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to make war upon them, who following the predictions of the prophets sent Nebuzaradan his general, who reduced all Judah with fire and sword, took and sacked the city of Jerusalem and reduced the temple of the living God to a heap of ruins. The conquerors carried with them as captives into Babylon Zedekiah and all his people, also all the ornaments and treasures of the temple. This happened 470 years, 6 months and 10 days after its dedication. The Grand Elect and perfect Masons who were at Jerusalem at this time exerted themselves with great bravery and fortitude in its defense, but without effect, for soon beholding the temple of God falling into one general heap of ruins, they directed their whole attention to the preservation of the sacred vault from injury and the golden plate from being discovered. For this purpose a party of them fought their way into the sacred vault, where they found the golden plate on the agate stone uninjured. Their joy was excessive on this occasion. They all cried out, Bo me Gabamara, that is, thank God we have found it. Thrice puissant, what did they do after this discovery? Senior Grand Warden, they retired contented, resolving that in future they would never trust this holy name to be written or engraved, but to preserve it faithfully in their hearts, and that their descendants should only know it by tradition. From thence arose the custom of pronouncing the letters only, without joining the syllables, which was observed afterward in the temple which was built by Cyrus. Thrice puissant, how long did the captivity of the brethren continue after the destruction of the temple by Nebuchadnezzar? Senior Grand Warden, the first captivity was 70 years, as was predicted by the prophet Jeremiah. Thrice puissant, how did the Israelites behave in Babylon during their captivity? Senior Grand Warden, they repented of the crimes of which they were guilty, and by example of the Grand Elect, who were with them, they worshipped the only true and living God as the prophets had before written. Thrice puissant, who were those prophets? Senior Grand Warden, Habakkuk, Zechariah, Haggai and Malachi. Thrice puissant, who was it gave liberty to the Israelites and permitted them to return to their own country? Senior Grand Warden, Cyrus, king of Persia, who was the conqueror of the entire East. He not only gave permission to the Israelites to return to their own country and rebuild the city of Jerusalem, but also presented them all the sacred vessels which had belonged to the temple, and which had been preserved by the care of Mithridates, the second treasurer. Thrice puissant, where do the Grand Elect, perfect and sublime Masons work this day? Senior Grand Warden, in the place chosen to re-establish the edifice which had been ruined by the traitors. Thrice puissant, what are the wages of our success? Senior Grand Warden, virtue, which all may obtain who desire it. Thrice puissant, what recompense do you expect? Senior Grand Warden, the destruction of vice and the knowledge and love of my brethren. Thrice puissant, what do you find in the place which has been chosen? Senior Grand Warden, dead bones, blood and a burning lamp. Thrice puissant, what did you do with the lamp? Senior Grand Warden, I put it out. Thrice puissant, then you are in darkness? Senior Grand Warden, no, thrice puissant, I had no occasion for lamp or light, I was enlightened by the effulgence of the most brilliant and divine Delta. Oath of allegiance. To be taken by every brother when advanced to the degree of Grand Elect Perfect and Sublime Mason. In presence of the Grand Architect of the Universe, and of this respectable assembly of Freemasons, I solemnly promise to obey the general regulations of the Supreme Grand Council for the jurisdiction of the Western Hemisphere, and to acknowledge said Supreme Grand Council as the only authority of the Scotch Rite in said jurisdiction, and I further promise and swear that I will have no intercourse as a Mason of said Rite with any Masonic body of Masons pretending to be subject to any Masonic authority of said Rite in this jurisdiction other than said Supreme Grand Council of which the illustrious brother group of symbols is now Sovereign Grand Commander. So help me God. Closing ceremonies. Thrice puissant brother Senior Grand Warden, from whence came you? Senior Grand Warden, thrice puissant, from Judo. Thrice puissant, what did you bring from thence? Senior Grand Warden, the precious treasure of the Grand Elect engraved upon my heart, which I will give you. Thrice puissant, approach my brother. The Senior Warden leaves his seat and approaches the thrice puissant with the signs of admiration and whispers in his ear the ineffable word, letter by letter. Thrice puissant, strikes 3 and says, Brethren, will please form the chain around the altar. All kneel on left knee and form with hands above their heads. The thrice puissant then whispers in the ear of the brother next to him the ineffable word. That brother gives it to the next, and so on until it reaches the thrice puissant again. Thrice puissant, my dear brethren, the word which was lost is found, engraved in the deepest part of our hearts. Let us retire in the dark and purify our hearts from all uncleanliness. Let us pray. Closing prayer. Direct our steps, O Adonai, Supreme Lord and Master of the universe. Grant that we may shun the paths of the wicked and not fall into the pit which our enemies have made for us, that the effulgence of divine wisdom may enlighten us, that we may possess the means of being charitable by the gifts of this providence, and grant, O Lord, that we may not be unsuccessful our labor. Bless and sanctify our works that we may know and acknowledge thy power and strength, and grant that the virtue which Masonry teacheth may be firmly engrafted in our hearts, and the honor and glory should be ascribed to thy most holy and mighty name. Amen. All now take their places. Thrice puissant, brother Senior Grand Warden, what's the clock? Senior Grand Warden, thrice puissant, it is midnight. Thrice puissant, why do you say it is midnight? Senior Grand Warden, because after labor comes rest, and night is the time of iniquity. Thrice puissant, what brought you here? Senior Grand Warden, the desire of practicing in common with my brethren the arts of virtue, justice and charity. Thrice puissant, what is it that attracts you here? Senior Grand Warden, the brilliant and adorable Delta. Thrice puissant, how comes the Delta so often mentioned in this degree? Senior Grand Warden, to learn the power, goodness, mercy and majesty of the Grand Architect of the universe, the God of heaven and earth, the eternal Father of nature. Thrice puissant, what do you carry from hence? Senior Grand Warden, a great desire of doing good. Thrice puissant, what can a Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason desire more when he has come to the sublime degree of perfection? Senior Grand Warden, the eternal beatitude for which he will ever sigh without ceasing, and which we can only acquire by his good works. Thrice puissant, brother Senior and Junior Grand Wardens, acquaint the brethren that I am going to close this lodge of perfection by the mysterious numbers 3, 5, 7 and 9. Senior Grand Warden, brethren, you will please take notice that the thrice puissant Grand Master is going to close this lodge of perfection by the mysterious numbers 3, 5, 7 and 9. Junior Grand Warden, Brethren, you will please take notice that the thrice puissant Grand Master is going to close this lodge of perfection by the mysterious numbers 3, 5, 7 and 9. Thrice puissant, Knox 3, 0, 0, 0. All rise. Senior Warden, Knox 3, 0, 0, 0. Junior Warden, Knox 3, 0, 0, 0. All make the signs of admiration. Thrice puissant, Knox 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Senior Warden, Knox 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Junior Warden, Knox 5, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All make the signs of admiration. Thrice puissant, Knox 7, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Senior Warden, Knox 7, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Junior Warden, Knox 7, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All make the signs of admiration. Thrice puissant, Knox 9, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Senior Warden, Knox 9, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Junior Warden, Knox 9, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. All make the signs of admiration. Thrice puissant, to the glory of the Grand Architect of the Universe and under the auspices of the Supreme Grand Council of the Sovereign Grand Inspector General of the 33rd degree for the Northern Jurisdiction of the Western Hemisphere in the Valley of New York, and by virtue of the authority on me conferred by this Sublime Grand Lodge of Perfection, I declare its works thereof now closed. Brothers Senior and Junior Grand Wardens, officers and brethren of this Sublime Grand Lodge of Perfection, I admonish you to retire in peace, to practice virtue and religion and to always live as becomes those who live in the immediate presence of the Grand Architect of the Universe, and may God bless our country and our arms. Thrice puissant, together brethren, all clap, 3, 5, 7 and 9.